everybody, I'm Nick and welcome to another episode of Code Cop, the series where we go over questionable advice given in places like LinkedIn, X or blogs, and we try to learn from it and turn it into good advice. Now in this video, I have a very interesting piece of advice because it's ultimately the mistake of looking at the tree and completely missing the forest. Like if you just fixate on a single thing, in this case it's going to be performance, you mess up everything else in your code base. So let me show you what I have here. I have this post actually, which says skip and take versus range syntax. Now we have the old school skip n amount of items in this collection and take 5. So it's going to skip number 1 and 2 and give us 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. In the same example, we also have the take and range syntax where we say take from the second to the 7th. And because of how range works, we're going to get the exact same values over here. And the point that this creator wants to make is that skip and take is actually slower and shouldn't be used, and you should use this syntax instead because it is 2% slower as well as 50 bytes more memory inefficient here. My biggest problem with this is that what the hell are you enumerating this into? Because you cannot benchmark this by just returning var, because var here is an IEnumerable of a string. It's not enumerated. It doesn't perform like anything. You have to enumerate it into something. Is it a list? Is it an array? Is it something else? I'm going to assume that this person was using a list in this because the original collection here is a list too. But Jesus Christ, when you make benchmarks like this, provide the code to everyone so we can see what the hell you're doing. Now, this is a bit sus to me, because this is a lot of memory allocated for what is just strings, unless the person did not use traditional string names and they use something extremely long. Now, of course, here you have the LinkedIn crowd going, yeah, amazing, that's the best advice I've ever gotten. And even the comments are like, there's so many bots on LinkedIn, it's crazy. The algorithm is terrible. And the text that this person provided is that here's a C# tip. The skip method skips the first elements and takes whatever together they're great for slicing collections dynamically. The range collection introduced in C#8 slicing becomes more simpler and more expressive. Additionally, the take method now supports ranges, enabling it with a specific contiguous range of elements directly from a sequence. So both examples produce the same result functionally. However, the second example is more efficient, which eliminates the need to create an intermediate list. What? There is no intermediate list created here. The skip won't create a list. It's just an instruction on the enumerable. And the instructions will be aggregated and they will both be taken into account to create whatever you have in the outcome. It's ultimately functionally the same thing as what's going to happen with the take. And by saying list, I assume the person did this as a to list. But this would only be the case if the person went here and they said to list and then to list again. Only then you would have two lists or two lists. It's like, it's such a dumb way to even frame this. Again, both of these are enumerables. They haven't been enumerated into anything. They're not a collection yet. They're just instructions on how to build a collection. So that's what the person suggested here. Now I want you to fully understand, if I just quickly build this, that if I go to the IL viewer and I look into high-level compiled C#, what's going to happen is we're going to get very similar code. Yes, there's going to be 2 method invocations. Here we're going to have skip and take, and here we're going to have take and then a range and 2 indexes. But the code itself does not look too different. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to run some benchmarks. So I'm going to go to my benchmarks over here, and I have as close as I could get to the exact same thing as the post had. I'm assuming they're enumerating into a list. You can't just return an enumerable, so that must be it. So what I'm going to do, and as you can see here, I have 10 items, so I'm going to get from the 2nd to the 7th. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this is in release mode. I'm going to comment all of this out, and then I'm going to say benchmark runner.run, and I'm going to run my benchmarks. And let's see what the performance really is. Because one of the things I noticed is the execution time was very long. And by the way, the execution time shouldn't change with how big the collection is, because it is instructions on the skip and take. So it should automatically go to that, especially if it's an in-memory collection, which in this case it is. So let's just run this in production and see what we get back. All right, so results are back, and let's see what we have here. So as you can see, the memory allocated is again this 50 or 48 bytes in difference. So it's negligible, let's be honest. It doesn't matter. It's so small. But because this was done properly and not with whatever witchcraft the person has used in their example, you can actually see that the difference is not 2%, but 11 and a bit percent. So the difference in performance is bigger, but it's only 3 nanoseconds. It's negligible. It's nothing nobody should ever care about. So don't even consider the fact that, we should use take and this, not so readable, I'll be honest, syntax if you're coming from a C# background in your code base. And the thing is, it's very unlikely you're going to be using this like this. What you're going to have is a page size and a page number, because ultimately what this is used for is pagination. So this would actually really look something like this, where you'd have an incoming page number, let's say page 2, and then a page size, let's say page 5, and then you would build the skip amount. So I have to skip whatever it is multiplied by the page size, and then the take, which is the page size. And in this case, the index becomes skip ... page size. In my opinion, this is very unreadable compared to this. This reads very nicely. The outcome is basically the same. The performance will ultimately be the same because it's 3 nanoseconds. It's immeasurably small, and 50 bytes per execution. Come on. I mean, yeah, there's cases in hot paths where you wouldn't want to worry about that, but using LINQ at this point. So, I mean, performance isn't really what worries you. And the reason why this doesn't matter at all, even like in C# or anything, is because where would you use syntax like this? Yes, you could have some hard computational workload that needs to do like manual skip and take and pagination. But in reality, the most common use case for this is EF core. So you would use this in EF core for pagination, right? Yes, but here's the catch. What if you try to do this with EF core? Well, what does this translate into? Well, it doesn't, because as you can see, this thing is still open. This issue is still open, saying that, hey, these new methods were introduced and it's a shorter version of this. Should we implement it? And then this issue goes forever. And ultimately, currently, it is in release backlog from dotnet 8. It hasn't been touched in so long. And even the last comment is from March saying that the issue is in the backlog milestone, meaning that it's not planned for a next release. We will reassess the backlog following the whatever. However, keep in mind that there are other many high priorities features, and they will be competing for resources. So ultimately, Microsoft doesn't care about this enough to even implement it, because this reads way better. The old school way reads way better. And if you need to see how this is going, there's a whole issue tracking all of these new features. The only thing that has been implemented is the order and order descending methods. The skip and take, the range, min, max, and all of these, they don't even care about adding. And I don't know if they will ever be added. They probably will at some point, but Microsoft doesn't care, and I'll be honest, you shouldn't either. This is not really readable in this context anyway, so just stick with this. You'll have better understandable, better readable code. It doesn't matter that it's 3 nanoseconds slower and 50 bytes slower. It makes zero difference. But now I want from you. What do you think about this? And do you have an alternative to do pagination in EF core or in your own code? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Well, that's all I had for you for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, keep coding.